I live in a small Midwestern city in the United States. I've worked as a teacher for a while. I have a college degree. I'm a college graduate. I'm an artist, a writer. I've written a number of books. In about 2010, I started having some difficulties with paranoid thoughts, anxiety. I went to the local mental health center here. The professional diagnosed me with an illness they called schizoaffective personality disorder, which is not really a form of schizophrenia. I was assured that I could be helped by a combination of drugs manufactured by a company called Janssen Pharmaceuticals. One of them was called Risperdal, and the other was called Invega Sustenna. I went in and got their injections by their nurses. Lo and behold, the expected thing happened. I started gaining massive amounts of weight, and the sluggishness and the tiredness led to me eventually getting type 2 diabetes. It makes you go blind, lose your fingers and toes, and it damages all the arteries in your body that you need to live. So I also developed another condition, and even called Gynecomastia. If you work out, it doesn't matter. It never goes away. I had to have a bilateral mastectomy. While I no longer have gynecomastia, I now have really nasty, ugly-looking scars. Flash forward 10 years or so, and I'm a diabetic, and I'm doing everything I can to try to control weight, lose weight, control sugars, work out, exercise, all this stuff. And I think I'm doing pretty good. Was going to go get plastic surgery to try to correct the scars on my chest. Plastic surgeon said, well, first I want you to go get checked out by a cardiologist. He said, well, I'd like you to have a catheterization. Went to a cardiac surgeon. He gave me the catheterization. When I woke up from it, he was like, well, everything looked fine except for the fact that you had an 80% blockage in literally the most serious artery going to your heart. And if it had been 100%, I would have had what was called the widowmaker heart attack. And only 7% of people that have the widowmaker heart attack survive. So from Risperdal and Invega being injected into me, what I got from this in life, this wonderful help from the mental health center, was type 2 diabetes, coronary artery disease, which almost killed me, and disfiguring gynecomastia. Diabetes, heart disease, and early death must just be the price you pay for good mental health. Now, I'm going on 10, 11 years here of living like this. Destroys potentials in your life. And you have all these issues that they make worse with their medicine. You don't live life the same way. Whatever relationships I could have had, whatever opportunities I could have taken if I'd have not been burdened with this stuff, those things disappeared in the past. No, at one moment did they sit down with me with any informed consent. Nobody told me jack shit. They do not fucking care, man. I just trusted them. Never trust them. These people don't understand, and they're not being warned that these drugs will physically lead to their death. And at this point, I feel like essentially they've stolen life from me. The chances are I'm going to die young. I don't feel physically well. As far as psychiatry, I have not one single thing good to say about the psychiatric or the mental health industry. They are total fucking monsters. I hope that their industry is either reformed or is completely obliterated. I would tell people in the psychiatric industry, if they have any moral or ethical sense, to really examine what they're doing and ask themselves if this is what they really want to be a part of, because these people literally are responsible for the deaths of the people that they're supposed to be helping.
Welcome to Our Expelled, a channel that is dedicated to discussing the very real dangers that revolve around the pharmaceutical approach of medicine. In these sections, we interview those who have been harmed by these chemicals or their loved ones and have found the courage to come up here and speak their truth to you. So joining me here is Tom. Tom, thank you so much for coming here.
It's a pleasure to be here, my friend.
I'm highly appreciative of anybody who contacts us and is willing to come here and speak. It's so important. With tragedy and with pain comes a lot of wisdom. And I think this wisdom is extremely important to be shared with others. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I live in a small Midwestern city in the United States. I've worked as a teacher for a while. I have a college degree. I'm a college graduate from a major university in the Midwest. I'm an artist, a writer. I've written a number of books. Some of them have been legitimately published. Some of them are self-published. And I also do some art and different things. In about 2010, I started having some difficulties with paranoia, paranoid thoughts, anxiety, large amounts of anxiety and paranoid thoughts. And so I went to the local mental health center here in my town and sought out some advice of the wonderful professionals there. And the professional suggested, or they diagnosed me after a short stay with an illness they called schizoaffective personality disorder, which is not really a form of schizophrenia. It's more of a personality disorder. I'm not sure how to define. Anyway, I was assured that I could be helped by a combination of drugs manufactured by a company called Janssen Pharmaceuticals, which is a division of Johnson & Johnson, which is a megalithic, multinational, huge corporation that spans the globe, and they're incredibly powerful and rich. Anyway, there's medications. This is about 2008 or 9, I believe, maybe 10, 11 years ago. These medications, one of them was called Risperdal, and the other was called Invega Sustenna. Well, I don't like taking medicines. They knew I didn't like taking medicines, and they knew that I wouldn't take the medicine religiously like they wanted, because eventually the side effects would be too much for me. So they said, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll just make it easy on you. You just come in, you get an injection of these medicines, and all will be right with the world. So like a complete idiot, and never ever being given any informed consent whatsoever about what these medications would eventually do to me, ever being made aware of any black box, nobody told me about any black box warning, and you think that I would be the one that should know. I went in and got their little drug in, their injections by their nurses. Lo and behold, the expected thing happened. I started gaining massive amounts of weight. And I've always been pretty husky, but I worked out, I exercised, I walked miles. I was not a diabetic at the time, but the weight that I gained, a massive amount of it, and the sluggishness and the tiredness led to me eventually getting type 2 diabetes. Also led to me, and type 2 diabetes is a very, very serious disease, no matter what they try to tell you at the mental health center and shrug it off and just claim that, well, it's controllable. No, it actually makes you go blind, lose your fingers and toes, and it damages all the arteries in your body that you need to live. So I also developed another condition, and even a humiliating condition called gynecomastia. And gynecomastia is the enlargement of the male breasts to a point where it's socially humiliating. It's really psychologically disturbing. And even if you lose weight, and I found this out personally, if you lose weight, if you pump iron, if you work out, it doesn't matter. It never goes away. And it only goes away unless you have surgery, which I had to have. I had to have a bilateral mastectomy, which, because the plastic surgeon was a dick, he wouldn't finish the job that he botched, basically. So while I no longer have gynecomastia, I now have really nasty, ugly-looking scars on my chest where I once looked normal. This is all from the wonderful drugs given to me by the mental health center, that wonderful Risperdal and Invega, which is a gift that just keeps on giving. Flash forward 10 years or so, and I'm a diabetic, and I'm doing everything I can to try to control weight, lose weight, control sugars, work out, exercise, all this stuff. And I'm doing pretty good. I'm trying the ketogenic diet and everything. Make a long story short, was going to go get plastic surgery to try to correct the scars on my chest. Plastic surgeon said, well, first I want you to go get checked out by a cardiologist. And so I went and got checked out by the cardiologist. He said, well, I'd like you to have a catheterization just to make sure there's nothing wrong in there. I said, well, I don't know if I want to do that or not. And he said, well, it's your call. But I decided, luckily enough, I suppose, to do that. Went to a cardiac surgeon. He gave me the catheterization. And he said, when I woke up from it, he was like, well, everything looked fine. You have a really healthy body, except for the fact that you had an 80% blockage in literally the most serious artery going to your heart. And if it had been 100%, I would have had what was called the widowmaker heart attack. And only 7% of people that have the widowmaker heart attack survive. So the survival rate is not good. So from Risperdal and Invega being injected into me, what I got from this in life, this wonderful help from the mental health center, was type 2 diabetes, coronary artery disease, which almost killed me, which probably will one day, and disfiguring gynecomastia. And the other, just added on for flavor stuff, is like erectile dysfunction. What else? Oh, years of my life basically spent hiding inside, because obviously if you have gynecomastia and all these other problems, you're not, out with the ladies, your life takes a different turn. So I don't have any children, I don't have any social contacts really or anything, but I do have a lot of rage that I've been sitting on. So now the final insult here, and I do still have cardiac symptoms all the time. I'm not healthy at all, no matter what. I still have a stent placement, but I'm still not healthy. I'm wondering if I have other blockages and how long I'm going to be here on this bit of rock floating in space. But the final insult was that there was a lawsuit against the Janssen Pharmaceuticals that I was told at first that I was not going to be able to be a part of, because of a ruling that unless you took the medicine under the age of 18, you didn't have any legal recourse. Okay, so I said, well, okay, I got fucked there. Great, wonderful. That's the way the cookie crumbles. So I didn't hear from these people I heard from them and got an offer for a settlement, a small one, very small. I couldn't turn it down. It was enough of an insult coming from who it was coming from, but nobody ever asked me to any mediation. I've been involved in other lawsuits in settlements, and you get to go to mediation, and everybody meets and they talk about a certain amount. That didn't happen here. Lo and behold, the said law firm ends up keeping a huge amount that they didn't really specify before. So my take from all the physical and psychological damage these filthy rich system pigs, excuse the expression, did to me, did to my body, my take is so paltry, it's virtually a joke when I finally get it. I've been waiting for it for a while. So I feel, not only was I physically, economic exploitation based on the part of the corrupt lawyers and the corrupt company. The Janssen Pharmaceuticals, it has trillions of dollars. Obviously, them just writing off, throwing peanuts at a problem, this massive problem they've created where they've destroyed somebody's life. And again, to add insult to injury, the attitude of the psychiatric professionals. When I talk to them about it, and they understand, they know, they've probably got me red flagged. Their attitude is basically like, quit whining. We don't care. That's the price of doing business. We're here to help you. Diabetes, heart disease, and early death must just be the price you pay for good mental health. Don't question us. We're the authorities.
Even if we didn't tell you,
they don't give them.
Even if so, you basically, when you started these medications, you were not receiving any warnings whatsoever. What was the extent of the warnings that you?
No, I didn't say. I had absolutely no clue. Nobody told me jack shit. Nobody said, if you take this stuff, you could develop diabetes, and diabetes is really serious. It's not a joke. These people, I've talked to a psychiatrist down there who basically acted like type 2 diabetes was nothing but a fucking joke. This is a disease that causes death.
He just shrugged it off as if, not an
Oh,
issue.
absolutely. Oh, yes. This is their attitude. They don't give a flying fuck about the homeless, bedraggled, and other human, the other problem individuals that come in and out of their institution every day. What they care about is their insurance, their money, whatever they get from the government for giving out their damn pharmaceutical drugs or having you as a client or whatever. They don't give a flying fuck. Their clients are fat, they're out of shape, they smoke, and they're going to die, 20, 30 years younger than what they would have if they hadn't been. And I'm not saying it's, everything is their fault, because a lot of these people have self-destructive tendencies anyway. But a lot of them, they get injected with this shit. They get tardive dyskinesia. They get, the weight gain is the main thing, because the weight gain will give you the heart diabetes and the heart disease. And that's the main thing. And these fuckheads, these frauds, excuse my expression, these charlatans at the fucking mental health center do not give a shit. They do not fucking care, man. I'm not even sure. I mean, psychiatry, my idea of psychiatry was that, Freud and sitting and psychoanalyzing somebody. That's not what they do. What they do is they say, oh, you're bipolar or manic depressive. Here's this particular medicine. This one will take care of that. And, oh, you're schizoaffective. Here's this medicine, and this one's designed specifically you have no idea how these medicines have been designed specifically to take care of these idiosyncratic diagnoses that they say you have. It's ridiculous, but this is what they do. And,
so basically, we have a book, the DSM, where we just take a list of different characteristics and symptoms. If you have them, we just check. Let's see, what diagnosis does it fit? Oh, it fits this one. Great. Just like following a scheme, like a circus monkey, basically.
Yeah.
Zero critical thinking, zero personalization. All it is about is just following a rigid scheme like a drone. And then let's see, for this scheme, oh, we got this drug for you. There you go. That's the extent, basically, that the psychiatric establishment goes to in order to help people that struggle mentally. It's deplorable. It's absolutely deplorable. You would think, right? You would think that when you have a mental health crisis, right, you would go to multiple sessions. You would sit with a very intelligent individual who has the capacity to be extremely perceptive and compassionate. And he would sit there with you each session, at least an hour, really try to get into the meat of the things, why you feel the way you do, what is happening. But that's not what's going on. Psychiatry has it took like a 180-degree turn from what it was supposed to be, and it just turned into a front for selling drugs.
Absolutely. They're the biggest fucking drug peddlers. They offer addictions counseling. They ought to start with, if they want to really, put a damper on drug addiction, they should really look at themselves in the mirror. I haven't taken any psychiatric medicine in years and years. I refuse, and they know I refuse. I take no drugs whatsoever that aren't medical, that aren't to keep me alive. So I didn't even need, I live well enough. I didn't even need Risperdal and Invega.
I mean, let me ask you, were you in a position before you came there that you just couldn't function, that your mental health was at such an extent that you were dysfunctional completely as an adult? I had massive anxiety attack, partly because of social isolation. And then, partly other issues I had. I had not to belabor it, but I've had this kind of an abusive childhood, and that is one thing and I'm very eccentric. My interests in things are very eccentric. I don't normally, it's very difficult for me to foment close interpersonal relationships and contact with people. So in a way, yeah, I guess I do have a kind of schizoid personality. I sort of live in my own world in a sense. Be that as it may, Risperdal and Invega, did I need those poisons? No. I didn't need those poisons at all. I didn't need, if I could go back in time and do it all over again, I would have refused, or I would at least have demanded them tell me, what does this drug do? What is it going to do 5 years from now? What am I going to be like 6, 8 years from now? Am I going to be somebody who's constantly afraid that
that I'm going to have a heart attack, that I'm going to have overstress it one day, or, my blood pressure's constantly shot up. My, again, things like erectile dysfunction, just a happy little side effect of all of this, or being scarred permanently and just being sick all the time,
When we're talking about the erectile dysfunction, we're talking about something that is persistent and permanent even after cessation of the drug?
Yes. Yeah. In my case, it's a toss-up. I have to take beta blockers, metoprolol. I have to take metoprolol and also benazpril, which is a blood pressure medication, because I have, hypertension and heart disease. So those cause, and the heart disease and the diabetes themselves also can cause erectile dysfunction. Things have not been normal. As far as hormones, I have incredibly low testosterone. To a point where even testosterone replacement therapy doesn't really do much for me.
The endocrine system is extremely sensitive, much more sensitive than than most physicians are even aware of. And so many different toxicants from the environment and also, of course, some medications can assault it and disrupt normal functioning because it's so complex. And it's a common theme that I see with so many men that have been injured by all sorts of different drugs. Testosterone levels just tank.
I asked a urologist at one point, if all my problems, because again, I've got other physical male problems related to weight gain, related to low testosterone, related to erectile dysfunction. I asked him, what is responsible for all this? And he said, he basically was very blunt. He said it was the medication you took. He laid it out. He said, it's the medication you took. Yeah. Yeah. And so again, I wouldn't be, now I'm going on 10, 11 years here of living like this. And it's really potential. It destroys potentials in your life, because obviously when you have something like gynecomastia, when you have all these issues that they make worse with their medicine, you don't live life the same way. You live it isolated more. You live it distanced, social distance, to use a term that's now current. So, whatever relationships I could have had, whatever opportunities I could have taken if I'd have been of a different mindset and not been burdened or saddled with this stuff, those things disappeared in the past. So Janssen Pharmaceuticals is into me for a hell of a lot more than the peanuts they were willing to throw my way. And for them to fucking insult me the way that they did in this, I feel like I got fucked by all these powerful entities. I feel like I got fucked by the pharmaceutical company, which I don't know what the hell I can do about that except release some fucking books or pamphlets or something. I feel like I got fucked by the law firm, who were into economic exploitation, essentially, of just skimming by with as many cases as they could, with doing as little as they had to. And I feel like I got fucked by obviously the mental health center, because they just, who gave me the medicine, never warned me. I never had not one moment did they sit down with me with any informed consent. Did not get my I don't even recall getting a damn paper from them explaining what could possibly happen. I just trusted them. Never trust them. They do not give a fuck about you. This is what I have learned. You're a client, but you're also a sucker, a rube, and they get you in there and, oh, you're manic depressive, bipolar, PTSD. Here's this special medication that will just absolutely specifically cure all these idiosyncratic things that we say that you are. And, but the side effects are, possible death or movements you can't control, massive weight gain, diabetes, heart disease, heart attack, gynecomastia, erectile dysfunction, and on and on and on and on and on. It's absurd. And they cannot fucking take the mental health center, the psychiatrist, and one thing that they cannot take any criticism. They will not brook any criticism of them. It's like, I swear to God, they act like it's heresy. When you basically put A, B, and C together and say, I wouldn't have these conditions if it hadn't been for listening to you people, it's like they freeze over. It just doesn't click with them. They basically, they call it gaslighting, I think. It's like, that's just absurd. Oh, that's absurd, But then they get really and I don't say self-righteous, but they get really, they have a sort of a how dare you attitude.
How dare you, sir? You need to come down with your baseless accusations. Are you taking your drugs still?
Yeah, basically that. Yeah, it's a form of, basically it's a form of gaslighting.
It's
And
the ultimate. I would say that it's the ultimate form of gaslighting.
Absolutely, yeah.
I can't think of a better example than that. And basically you're saying is, you go there, you're seeking help. They offer you this prescription, tell you how wonderful it is, without telling you the actual risks involved. And they make the decision for you, basically. In their heads, they do that for you. You're just the dumb layperson coming in there. They're the experts. And he's not, whatever, we'll make the decision for him. He's not fit to even consider if diabetes, horrific movement disorders, or whatnot are, worth struggling with some mental health issues. No. We make that decision for you. And you just sit down, take it, and thank us. That's how it is.
Absolutely. It's almost like the medieval church in a way. To question them is an act that makes you a heretic. And if you're a heretic, and particularly in the way things are in America today, with as many social problems, and you have a lot of guys walking around that are waiting to pop off because they feel they got nothing left to lose. If you deviate from the norm, you are immediately under suspicion in the eyes of most people. If you're not sort of an A, B, and C person, if you have any problem with the system, they immediately red flag you as a possible threat. And if you're a possible threat, then it's not just that you're a threat to the system, maybe. They sort of extrapolate that, and you become a social liability, or you become a social pariah in a sense. To me, it seems that's the feeling, the impression, or the perception I get. It seems to be a very conformist, it's a very rigidly conformist way of thinking. It's where social shaming, I guess social opprobrium and social shaming, that's a huge part of it. Because you're always, in this country, you're always supposed to listen to the voice of reason. And the voice of reason is the system. And anybody who doesn't sort of go along with that is a bad, unpatriotic American who probably is a communist or a subversive or a radical of some kind. And here in the Midwest, particularly, that is just not something that is acceptable to most people. So if you have a problem, I thought about standing outside the damn mental health center with a fistful of pamphlets and a picket sign telling them, why don't you stop killing your patients? Because that's exactly, in effect, my friend, what they're doing. They're killing these people. They're giving them drugs and these people don't understand. A lot of them are very low education. They do not understand that these drugs, 10 years, when you gain 60 pounds to begin with, you're putting a lot of stress on your body. You're giving yourself diabetes. That will make you blind. That will give you amputations. That will put you in a wheelchair. And that will eventually kill you. And once you've got it, you've got it. These fucking bastards are giving out medications and they admit it. They fucking admit it. I've heard them say it. They said, I had one say, the last time I talked to one of their people, this woman, who was one of the most ignorant women I've ever met in my life, she told me, well, if you're still having problems with depression, why don't we try this medication? Because this one doesn't have some of the creepy side effects, like diabetes. And I'm sitting here thinking, woman, diabetes is not a fucking side effect. Diabetes is a degenerative fucking disease that eventually kills you. That's not something small, lady. I'm sitting here thinking this. They've got like a mission house down here of psychiatric patients. You stand out there and you look at these people and you think to yourself, none of these fucking people are being helped. These people are not being helped with anything. They're sitting here with, their big gulp sugary pops and their cigarettes, and they're shaking. Their hands are... and they're given these medicines, and these people they're not being helped.
They're being destroyed.
They're being destroyed. Their bodies are being destroyed primarily. I guess it would be one thing if the psychiatrists just fucked with their heads permanently, but these people don't understand, and they're not being warned that these drugs will physically lead to their death.
Yeah. to their utter annihilation in the end. And
absolutely. Yeah, again, they're the voice of authority. If you get on the news programs, you watch the network news or whatever, they'll talk about the mental health crisis in America, and they'll have some psychiatrist on and some shill for the pharmaceutical company, basically. And he'll talk about how people we're not getting it, that our help, our wonderful help, our so beautiful, wonderful help that we have, we're just not getting it out to enough people.
yeah.
And if we could just medicate all these fucking people, then the whole world would be a wonderful utopia, wouldn't it? And I'm just sitting here thinking, I have to tell you, my friend, it's very difficult when I look in the mirror in the morning at my chest, when I look at the scars across it, and think about why I look like this. And it doesn't feel good physically either. And then I think about my other health problems. I think about Janssen Pharmaceuticals, and I think about the guys in the Armani suits, I'm sure, that run the place. I just can't help but full of rage, but also sad and disgusted feel impotent. You feel impotent with rage because they're so powerful and they're so wealthy, and they've got the system, obviously, for that reason, on their side. The courts are going to be on their side to a great degree against the common people.
It's like the game is rigged from the start. You stand no chance from the very get-go. And if you're not given the proper education, and when I mean education, I definitely don't mean what you get in school. I mean, if you're not given the wisdom and education from your folks that are somehow made aware of this, you're walking into a minefield, basically.
Yeah.
And that's the reality. Because unlike other professions or businesses, when something it doesn't go as it should, people can sue, people have rights, things, it's different. Here, these people are omnipotent. Like, you can't touch them. I just recently posted a post on my Facebook page about basically how Bayer used, for decades, they released this drug that massacred thousands of people, countless of thousands. I think it was an average of 1,000 a month just in the States alone. And they're just allowed to continue, oh, it happened. Oh, oopsie. Okay, let's just settle out of court a little bit. And the American government thinks that it's deemed acceptable to allow these people to continue to conduct business, still be a part of healthcare. And these are the people that provide your doctor with the drugs that he's prescribing to you. Psychopathic monsters that are making billions off of your death. And these are the people that make your drugs, ladies and gentlemen. These are the people that you trust. Would you trust, let me ask you, if you had a daughter or a son and you were supposed to interview a nanny, okay, let's say, watch over them while you're at work, would you want that nanny to be a psychopathic killer? Right? It kind of would turn you off from that. But for some reason, people just accept it. Like, the public just accepts the fact that, oh, another scandal with this drug company. Oh, a lawsuit here, a lawsuit there, whatever. Go to the doctor the next day like nothing happened. Take their prescription, and they're okay with it. And I just don't, I think I think because the majority of the public is just not aware, perhaps, of just how disgusting the system is, how exploitive and heinous and evil. I don't know a better, I can't think of a better example of evil than this. The drug that you took, they give this shit out to kids. And you were talking about Johnson & Johnson, and even in Wikipedia, guys, whoever's tuning in, you can just Google the drug risperidone and go in there, and you can see some of the lawsuits that were actually successful. I mean, I'm just gonna share my screen for a second, if that's all right, just to show some of that. Basically, what we're looking at right here is, if you can just go through them a little bit, is on the 11th of April 2012, Johnson & Johnson and its subsidiary Janssen Pharmaceuticals were fined $1.2 billion by the judge Timothy Davis Fox. The jury found the companies have downplayed multiple risks associated with risperidone, but the verdict was later reversed by the Arkansas State Supreme Court. And then in August 2012, Johnson & Johnson agreed to pay $180 million, which is peanuts to these people, as you said, trillions of trillions, in order to settle claims that have promoted risperidone for off-label uses, for dementia, even for anger management. So we're talking about a powerful antipsychotic. Okay, and it's not just a drug that interacts with one receptor or two receptor. We're talking about a drug that is an antagonist, has antagonistic effects on multiple dopaminergic receptors, on multiple serotonergic receptors, on alpha-adrenergic receptors. It fucks with everything. It just shuts down so many key activities in the human nervous system and in other tissues that have these receptors. And they're giving it out for anxiety. And then again, we look at here, November 2013, they were fined $2.2 billion for illegally marketing risperidone for use in people with dementia, by the way, which resulted in their death. It goes on and on and on. And there's also, as you said, several lawsuits on the behalf of children. Children who were prescribed risperidone who grew breasts. About gynecomastia.
Yeah.
And as of July 2016, there are about 1,500 cases in Pennsylvania. There's been on February 2015 a verdict against them with $2.5 million awarded to some guy in Alabama. So this just is insane. And this is what we know of. You know, these are the things that we know of. Obviously, there are much more things behind the scenes that people are not aware of. And it's not just Johnson & Johnson. It's Bayer's, it's Hoffmann-La Roche, it's Pfizer. It's all these companies. It's all the same. It's all about profit. And the sicker you get, the more money they get. And doctors are so brainwashed and indoctrinated via their education. It's all about pharma. It's all about pharma. And it has nothing to do with the patient. And do no harm today has become do no harm to the pharmaceutical revenue rather than That's the truth.
That is true. Yeah, that's absolutely true. I can't disagree with that at all.
Wow. So how long were you on these poisons?
Well, I would say a couple years, maybe. I haven't been on any of them in many years. They wanted to give me venlafaxine, but I wouldn't take that again because of the weird sexual dysfunction side effects that all these drugs give you.
Yeah, people are not aware. It's one of the, venlafaxine, one of the SSRIs. People think that, the sexual dysfunction is an issue with that. But there are support groups online with countless of thousands of people that say that this family of drugs just completely annihilated their brains. And I'm talking people that took one pill only, that their emotions have shut down permanently, that they cannot feel love for their children or their folks or their wives, or anybody, or spouses, anybody around them. They feel as if their souls have been stripped out of their own body. And, heinous things that you can't make this shit up. And I'm talking countless thousands of people that have been utterly destroyed just by these so-called SSRIs. And people say, when you listen to these testimonies, it kind of coincides a bit with sociopathy, where your ability to empathize with other human beings is just not there anymore. And, is it a surprise then that when people take these medications and they have a bad fucking day and they're armed, they go out about and shoot people because they have no empathy. They can't connect. They don't feel that pain anymore that you would feel with hurting a human being. And it's just utter insanity. And these drugs are being prescribed like Tic Tacs.
Most of these mental illnesses are just stuff that these psychiatric quote-unquote experts just pull out of their ass. What's the difference? How do you split hairs between who's a schizotypal and who's a schizoaffective and who's a schizoid and who's a schizo? How do they split these hairs and decide one from the other?
I'll give you a bet. I'll make a bet with you. You go and you see 5 different psychiatrists with your issue. I bet you that almost everyone will say something different about your condition.
Absolutely, yeah. I've been diagnosed bipolar, manic depressive, schizophrenia, which was completely wrong, schizoaffective personality disorder. I would incline, if there is anything to their diagnoses, I would incline to say a personality disorder would be more. And there's nothing, I don't see how you can medicate that. Why would you medicate something that's basically just a developmental disorder? And so schizoid, schizoaffective, schizotypal, Travis Bickle syndrome, as I like to call it from the character in Taxi Driver. That's because he supposedly had that in that movie. I don't see how you could, what are you medicating? What do you, it's a developmental learned disorder. It's not a chemical.
It's something that might require, for instance, years of deep psychological treatment and unlearn different behavioral patterns and learn new ones. But a drug is not going to do that. Ever.
No. no. But their entire model, at least at the mental health center here in this town, is a drug model. It's to drug everyone. It's to drug everybody is on a drug. Everybody's on a meds. And if you go to their group therapy meetings, the first thing that they say that they want you to do is make sure you don't stop taking your meds. And of course, these people stop taking their meds occasionally, and the schizophrenia or whatever comes back. Again, I feel they aren't the only factor that shaped my life and where I am today, but they are one of the huge mitigating factors. And I will tell you that at this point, I feel like essentially they've stolen life from me, because the chances are I'm going to die young. I mean, it's just that I just can't I don't feel physically well. I keep functioning, I work out, I lift weights still when I can, but I don't know how many more years before I do have the massive heart attack or whatever I'm going to get. Or I could also develop cancer from diabetes, which is another, I could certainly develop cancer too. So I feel like they've stolen, I feel like I could have dealt with anything else. I feel like I could have dealt with being scarred across the chest or their psychological manipulations or whatever. But obviously, if you're dead, you're dead. So obviously, if they've fucked my health up to the point where I'm, in a sense, I don't want to say terminal, but in a sense, it's not going to be the long lifespan I probably would have enjoyed otherwise. I feel like they've literally, in a sense, stolen my life, and I don't really have much of a recourse. The only thing I can do is tell my own story, obviously, and I can leave behind propaganda, or I can disseminate information to other people, warning them, but also undermining the people that I feel have done this to me.
What would be your message to, the medical system is flawed, obviously, corrupt to the core, but there are a lot of people that go into medicine initially with good intentions, and then they, get brainwashed via the system. They just do what they do, like cogs in the wheel. But still, what would be your message to even young doctors who just finished medical school and are listening to this interview?
My message for them, to be perfectly honest, as far as a medical doctor, I have more respect. The doctors that I respect the most are the heart doctors, the cardiologists. I can't see very much where they have, well, one saved my life, obviously, so I have more of a respect for them. As far as psychiatry, I have nothing good to say about psych. I have not one single thing good to say about the psychiatric or the mental health industry. To me, they are total fucking monsters. To me, they are so completely, at least as far as I have nothing good to say. I really don't have a message for them, except I hope that their industry is either reformed or is completely obliterated. That's all I can say to them. As far as medical doctors, I'm not, I don't have, the only medical issues I have, they're serious ones, but is heart disease. And there is some issue with how much medicine they're giving for this, because I'm on like 8 different prescriptions. I'm on atorvastatin, and benazepril, and isosorbide, and metoprolol, and what else? Clopidogrel, Plavix for blood thinner, and aspirin, and Vasepa, and it's just a constant cloud of this shit that I'm constantly ingesting. But I feel if I didn't do it, I don't just feel if I didn't do it, my blood pressure and heart rate races up. I would tell people in the psychiatric industry to really, if they have any moral or ethical sense, to really examine what they're doing and ask themselves if this is what they really want to be a part of. Because these people, make no mistake, it is my contention that these people literally are responsible for the deaths of the people that they're supposed to be helping.
And we're talking about deaths on a massive scale.
I'm talking, absolutely. That if you took this little town, this little mental health center in this little town, and you multiplied it all over the United States, it would be hundreds of thousands, if not, it would be a massive amount of human waste, of human wasted lives based on
senseless genocide.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah, in a sense, one has to, if you really conspiratorially minded, one would ask themselves, well, is the, is the elite, whoever they are they pumping this poison into the community so they can get rid of people they consider undesirable? Because most of these mental patients are poor, either black, Hispanic, poor white, people that the system typically doesn't have a lot, depending on your perspective, I suppose, but typically the system doesn't have a lot of love for those people, and they consider them kind of liabilities. Yeah, liabilities, or so you have to wonder if a lot of this, and it goes, and it's not even, you could even extrapolate this out to the food industry in a sense, because the worst food, the most damaging food, the most chemically laden foods are the cheapest foods, the easiest foods for poor people to get a hold of. You get ramen noodles and garbage like this, and all these fast food places, and this is all appeals to. Now, is it a big, huge conspiracy? I don't want to say that exactly, but it's certainly, yeah, it can be very disheartening to think about many of these things.
I agree. What would be your message to people that have been harmed or injured in any way by any medication, any prescription, that they trusted their doctor, they were healthy before, and then their life just got derailed totally and absolutely by these experiences? Do you think they should come up here? Do you think they should speak their truth? Do you think it's important
Absolutely.
to spread this message?
Absolutely. Speak your truth. Fight, to use an old line from a song, fight the power. If you can do it, however, look, I'm going to die anyway. I'm fairly certain. I don't know again how many more years I got, but on the way down, swear before God that the final act is before I leave this planet. I'm going to do every single thing within my power. I'm going to use every bit of intellect I have, the capacity to convey a message. And I'm going to use it as a virus. I'm going to use it as a way to sicken, as a way to undermine, to kick the legs out from under their table. And I'm not going to be the one that's going to do it, but I could help influence the one that does, or the ones that do eventually. Because these people are destroying the lives of people like me, and they're getting away with it because they've got all the money and power, they've got all the aces up their sleeve, and they've got the whole damn system on their side. It's unconscionable. It's absolutely unconscionable that they could do this to people. I want to thank you very much for this opportunity.
Same here. Again, I deeply appreciate you having the will to come up here and speak. I pray that you have some peaceful days ahead of you, and not all of them are just plagued by pain and debilitating symptoms, and you may find some joy and satisfaction